Today we are taking a look at the Logitech Flight Yoke. Now this is part of their wider flight simulation lineup. It's absolutely ideal for anyone who's flight simming for fun and wants to deepen the immersion, or anyone who's supplementing real-world flight training with simulation. Let's get into it. So you've got yourself a swanky new flight simulator and you want a yoke to go with it. A brilliant entry-level device from Logitech is their professional Flight Yoke series. In the box is included the Flight Yoke itself, as well as a throttle quadrant. Both are made out of pretty ruggedized plastics, very similar to the plastic that we saw on the X56 joystick. And the yoke itself kind of sits on a spring mechanism. It has pretty good travel distance actually for diving and pulling back, as well as the yoke itself will twist 45 degrees in each direction. The yoke itself clamps down to the table with an included plastic clamp, and I must say it does this pretty firmly and pretty securely. I do wish that there was a little bit more resistance in the yoke itself, given that it clamps so securely to the table. That would have felt a little bit more realistic. And whilst I do understand the recentering spring, it recenters either from being pushed forward, pushed back, or turned either way, a real yoke in a real aircraft would not behave in this way. I've flown real aircraft and they certainly don't feel like this, so that did break the immersion a little bit for me. As well as the included clamp, there are screws underneath the yoke if you want to attach it to something slightly more elaborate, and the throttle quadrant can attach in a couple of different ways on its included clamp so that you can adjust the throttle to be higher or lower depending on your preference. The yoke's got a really nice LED display on the front that can either function as a clock, or you can use it to time turns or distance or things on instrument approaches and departures, etc. So that's quite handy to have there as well. There's a hat switch on the left hand side of the yoke, as well as two-way momentary switches. On the right hand side of the yoke there is a single momentary push button, as well as two more two-way momentary switches. There's also a switch on the back which is perfectly placed to serve as a push to talk radio control, and there's a three-way rocker that changes the mode of the yoke and therefore changes the assignment of all of the buttons and effectively gives you three more combinations of key assignments, which is handy. You can't have too many key assignments in a flight simulator. It includes a USB hub on the back. It's pretty janky and useless if I'm honest. It certainly needs power to function properly, and the power adapter is not included in the box, and it only gives you USB 2. The actual device, the yoke itself, does connect to the computer via USB 3, and the included throttle quadrant connects via what looks like a very, very legacy analog adapter indeed. It comes in at a very competitive price point, around 140 UK pounds, and it was averaging sort of pre-pandemic madness around 170 US dollars. Make sure that you don't pay over the odds. I've seen ridiculous $230, $240 prices for this. It's not worth that price, but at a sensible 140 UK pounds, 170 US dollars, it's got a lot to like. It's certainly an entry level device. There's no force feedback. You haven't got that very nice smooth action on there, but it will certainly be a massive improvement for from a keyboard and a mouse. You might be using a joystick, but flying things like the Cessnas and Beechcraft aircraft, I mean, they use a yoke for a reason, and this really will deepen the immersion. Throw in a VR headset and you're good to go. It's also a very, very slippery slope. There is a very big Logitech flight simulation lineup available. You have been warned. I have to say it's every bit as fun designing and implementing these elaborate cockpits as it is actually flying the aircraft themselves. Very modular, fits together very nicely with included brackets and screws, and we will certainly be taking a look at these in the coming weeks and months. Now, Microsoft have confirmed compatibility for the Flight, Yoke and Throttle Quadrant for their upcoming flight simulator. Very excited. We're only a couple of days release away from that. They haven't confirmed all of the kind of elaborate radio panels, etc., but I would be staggered if they weren't compatible. They would effectively cheese off a bunch of people who had all of those things, and that could be the deciding factor about whether to stick with something like X-Plane 11 or move over to Microsoft Flight Simulator. So availability, of course, is a challenge at the moment, as with most things, as we live through these slightly crazy times. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. It's a solid product at a good price point. I do feel like the very overzealous bouncy spring lets it down a little bit. That did break the immersion, and it will do for anyone who's actually flown a real aircraft. But a great entry-level yoke, worth the money almost certainly. So there we go, guys. As always, I hope you're really well wherever in the world you are. Please like, share and subscribe, and I will see you